The Leaf Cup. The penultimate set of cups that we have to go through in terms of the original 8 cups. Like the last 2 cups that preceded it, looking at and reviewing the retro tracks in these set of cups should be interesting. But with that in mind, without any more rambling on, let's float on in and see what all 4 Leaf Cups have in store for us, shall we? Well, looks like we're starting off this video with Cooper Beach 2. Yay! Yeah, I still have nothing really to say about this course. It's still a circle, the music's fine, the waterhole's still big for a decent obstacle, and I guess the fact that it is in 3D now makes up for it. Thus, it gets to keep out detail this time. But I don't know. I guess it's a little bit more enjoyable to play out in this game with better controls. But yeah, I'm gonna have to throw this in C tier and call it a day. Next we have Choco Mountain. Now layout-wise, it feels and plays exactly the same as its original version on the N64. But graphically, it's kind of funny how the chocolate textures here look like actual chocolate, more so than the original version of it. But yeah, still a fun course. And now it's made to be better now that we have a game that controls well. The roller section is still here, the part where you can fall to a previous part is still here, which has actually tripped me up, albeit in a minority. And the music is actually more catchier than the original despite the DS compression. But yeah, I don't really have all that much to say about it. It's still a fun course though, so it gets to sit in B tier. Okay. Feels a little bit awkward that I have to talk about the remake of GBA Luigi Circuit before talking about the original in the next video. But you know what's ironic? I actually did the original burst, script-wise, before the remake. So I already know where this is going to go in the tier list. I'm not going to say too much about this track as, well, that's for the next video. But I will say that they did a really good job recreating this. The lighting is a tiny bit darker compared to the washed out visuals of the GBA. The music is the same as Peach Circuit in terms of catchiness. And the aesthetic is still cool to look at, with the weather stations and the like. Yeah, the ray's been made a little bit more softer now, but oh well. Nothing that you can really do about it. So yeah, this is a really good remake. As for where I'm putting it in the tier list, well, I won't say much on where the original is going. But as for the remake, it's going into high B tier. And concluding this game's Leaf Cup is Mushroom Bridge. Quite a surprising pick for a GameCube course to bring over. And in fact, I'd say it's the best of the GameCube remakes of this game. And it's probably the least butchered of the GameCube remakes of this game, alongside Pipe Plaza and Battle Mode. Sure, it's not really the same as the original, but it's still the same course that we all know and love. Yeah, the pipe is gone, but like in Peach Beach, it's not really a big loss in the grand scheme of things. But what is a big loss, though, is the ability to drive on the bridge edges like in the original. That's honestly kind of unfortunate, because I always enjoyed going onto the sides of the bridge in the original, despite me not really taking them all that much. But beyond that, still a fun traffic course. The layout's still fun, and the music is still catchy, despite being in the DS compression. So, I'd say it still has itself below A tier, even if it's at the bottom of it. And that wraps up the DS Leaf Cup. Mushroom Bridge just barely was able to clear house as the best in the cup, but GBA Luigi Circuit is definitely not too far behind. Oh my god, Nintendo, just why? Of all causes to start the Wii Leaf Cup, let alone bring back some Priority Retro, Why desert bloody hills? Honestly. But anyways, I basically have got nothing on this remake. It's just the same as the original, albeit with admittedly kinda nice updated graphics. And the fact that the fire snakes actually have eyes. The music is still solid at least, but yeah. It's just another generic desert course, and why bring this back when tracks like Ancient Fortress or TikTok Clock are right there? Whatever, I've got nothing to say. Layout's fine, the Marioversary aesthetic is still here. Yeah, I've got nothing. Into CT, here you go. Alright, here we go! GBA Bowser Castle 3! An actually good retro track in this scope. Gameplay-wise, it's still the same old course that I really liked from the original. I always thought it was the best of the Bowser's Castles in Super Circuit purely because of its color palette alone. And while the color palette isn't as bright as it was on the GBA, it still is nice to look at. The remake style is great and doesn't feel off one bit. But my favorite part of this remake is being able to now trick off of the jumps of one part of the course. Seriously, that never gets old. Especially since you can pull off an ultra shortcut towards that section. To which I won't even attempt to do, despite me being, like, really damn good at Mario Kart, but I can imagine those who did pull it off are real pros. Looking at you, Troy. Yeah, Kavik is gone from the ending, which is a bummer, but all in all, a very good remake. So I'd say it goes into B tier. Okay, what is going on with the retro picks for Wii for these first 3 corps? I swear to God, this might just be the worst leap cup of the entire series. But anyways, next is DK's Jungle Parkway, which was, and still is, my least favorite DK course. And I don't know how it managed to claw its way back into Mario Kart so soon. Admittedly, the visuals are improved, especially in the game section, but I just don't care about this course. The music's still generic, the layout's alright. I guess it kind of is a shame that the restless neighbors throwing them spiky rocks have been removed, but whatever, it's not really a big loss. To me, it's another one of those remakes that's better, but still isn't anything to get too excited about. I guess the control's better here, but yeah, let's just throw this in C tier and call it an A. And concluding the Wii Leaf Cup is yet another Mario Circuit. Yep, our third Mario Circuit Wii, and this time it's the GameCube one. Now, fun fact, this was originally going to be remade in DS. To whatever course replaced it, I don't know, but I'm kind of glad it got remade here instead of DS. Although saying that, it's not really too different from the original in terms of gameplay. In fact, it's literally exactly the same as it was back in Double Dash, like a direct port from that game. But since it's now in Wii, we can now truck up the buffs and the air bridge. It's not a whole lot, but I still think it makes this the slightly better version. Plus, I quite enjoyed this track back in Double Dash, and I always considered it one of the better Mario circuits in the series. So I think we have ourselves another B tier. And that wraps up Wii's Leaf Cup. I think my favorite here was either Bowser Castle 3 or GameCube Mario Circuit. For now, I'm saying Bowser Castle 3, but it may change depending on how I'm feeling. Finally, a good desert track to start Cup off with. But anyways, Mario Kart 7's Leaf Cup kicks off with N64 Calamari Desert. And I gotta say, this got a very nice graphical update in this game. This was already one of the better desert stages, and I still feel the same way about it here. I don't know, there's just something about the sand color that just pops to me. And of course, you can't forget about the train that's here, which, is the main reason why I'm biased to like this course, which you probably knew that already because of me being a massive Thomas fan, and anything with trains in it is down in my book. This track didn't receive that many changes though, which it didn't really need to, as this was already a very solid course. The only changes are 2 glider routes that can help you avoid the train, which are fun to take, even if they're not used often. And the unfortunate change of not being able to drive into the train tunnel anymore. That's a bit of a bummer, but everything else about it is very nice. From the nice layout, the popping music, and the inclusion of the trains. Yeah, still a high B tier course from me. Okay, now this is a worthy DK track to see get a remake. DK Fast is up next, and wow, does it look so much nicer here or what? Granted again, nothing else really changed all that much between this and the DS version. The music is still banging, especially now with the 3DS enhancement. And it's still fun climbing up to the mountain, even if both DK Mountain and DK Summit do it better, but that's neither here nor there. Really, the only changes this course got were the additional trick ramps in the snowy section, the glider route when going back down the mountain, and the biggest being the fog, which, like DK Summit, clears up as the laps progress, which is definitely a lovely thing to do. I know I should have brought it up in DK Summit back in the Flower Cup video, but I figured I'd mention it here since they're both snowy tracks. But beyond that, still the same DK Fast that I quite enjoyed back in DS. Yeah, it still doesn't do anything too special to earn itself anything higher than B tier, but I still quite enjoyed this remake nonetheless. Oh, now we are talking with the banger remakes! Daisy Cruiser is up next, and it's still the same great course as it was from Double Dash. Again, it didn't really need changing all that much, but the changes it got were really good changes. You can now go to the left instead of always going right. You can now drive into the swimming pool, which was a very nice touch. The dining area, while still the same, feels more brighter in terms of lighting. And the biggest change, I feel, is the fact that the engine room has now been turned into an aquarium now. Which I definitely really like, as, while I liked going down there, it kind of felt a bit bland. Yeah, the light buoys were removed, but that's not really a big deal. At least for me. But beyond that, still the same Daisy Cruiser that we all know and love. Great theming, great music. I think it still earns its place in A tier. And concluding the 3DS Leaf Cup is Wii Maple Treeway. Man, what a fitting ending to this cup. As not only is the leaf envelope in the Leaf Cup brown like it usually is, but this track is autumn themed. And again, what else can I say about this course, even if it's remade? It's an outstanding course. The forest aesthetic is still kept intact, the music is as catchy as ever, the wigglers still make for a fun obstacle, the leaf files still give you items. Although a few changes were made to this course, like the cannon becoming a glider, which again is to be expected. The half-pipe after the wiggler section is removed, which is a bit strange, but isn't a big loss, cause 8 Deluxe did bring it back. And the biggest change is removing the bouncy drinkable net into a glider section. Personally, I'm more of a glider fan, but I did like the net in the original. I can't see why people are upset over it, but this being a glider section is still something that I am A-okay with. But regardless, still the same banger course that we all know and love. And it is still an S+ track regardless of the changes. And that was the 3DS Leaf Cup. Yup, if it weren't obvious, Maple Treeway clears house once again. But Daisy Cruiser definitely is not too far behind. DS Warrior Stadium kicks off the Wii U Leaf Cup. And I gotta say, this definitely got a substantial glow up. While it may not have gotten the biggest glow up ever, it definitely received quite a few changes. Mainly the fact that you can trick off the boost now. And the section that had you avoiding fire parts is now turned to a super cool anti-gravity section. Not sure why they added an underwater section after that though, but hey, guess that just goes to show how wacky Wario can be. And I even like the fact that the time of day has changed, going from being a nighttime track in the original to a daytime track. Other than that though, still the same old Wario Stadium that I really liked in its original game. Good layout, good flow of everything, and even a banging new remix to boot as well. Yeah, the track later on shares it, but hey. So yeah, for all the changes it got, I'd say this earns itself a high B tier. Okay, again, what is it with the retro picks in these games? Why pick GameCube Sherbetland of all courses to bring back? But saying that, unlike Tri Desert where the changes made to that were for the worst, the changes here to Sherbetland were actually pretty good changes. The aesthetic I feel is a little bit more lively despite it still being a generic ice course. The frozen blues that you had to avoid in the original are now turned into underwater sections, which feels so natural to drive through. And there's even a hidden glide ramp towards the end of the course. And the music itself got a really good upgrade, even if Walt's version of it is way better. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still just a generic ice course, and I'm still not thrilled that this was chosen over something like Wario Coliseum. But all the changes it got make it at least a little bit more playable now. Yeah, it's still a bit slippery, but at least the freezes don't completely freeze you anymore. So I'd say this earns a low B tier. Going for an unwarranted pick for Double Dash to a well-deserved inclusion as a priority 3DS retro track in the form of Music Park / Melody Motorway. But saying that, out of all the 3DS retros in this game, at least for the base game, this is probably the most similar retro to its original counterpart. Gameplay-wise, it is identical to how I played back in Mario Kart 7. But graphically, wow, does it look so much nicer in this game. But you know what? Maybe being similar isn't a bad thing. Cause like I said before in the last video, don't fix what isn't broken, right? The headphone piranha parts are still there, the music still changes when you run over the pianos, and the music is still a bop, which also was remixed very well. But really, I'd say the only change was that, on the last lap, the music note guys are in sync with the final lap music as they are with the first two laps. But honestly, that's kind of a minor change in the grand scheme of things, cause the rest of the course is still fantastic. So it's still staying in S tier as far as I know. And finally, to conclude this video, we're now going from the most similar remake to its original version to probably the most different remake we'll be seeing in this video. The remake of N64 Yoshi Valley. Cause wow, what a glow up this course got. The starlight is now turned into a wild Yoshi sanctuary, which is such an adorable detail. And just, in general, everything else has been changed for the better. The split paths that were in the original are still there, but the fastest path is now much easier to take. The route that I usually took in the original is now a cave with some swoops coming out, and the longest path, which is still long, is now a cannon. There's also some additional routes now added to the course too. There's now an additional path next to the fast path, and there's even another path if you trip to the left long enough. Although it does seem like the giant egg isn't as much of a pain in the butt anymore, but that doesn't really hurt this course in any way. Because after that, there's now an additional ramp you can take that's in the off-road. And the new remix it got is so energetic, and I love it. As for how it was handled in Wii U Battle Mode though,
I mean, it's alright, like.
But yeah, we have another really strong remake. So I think it deserves to belong in low A tier. And that concludes the final cup of this video. Music Park is the clear winner of this cup, now that it doesn't have Woohoo Loop to compete with. But Yoshi Valley is definitely not too far behind. Man, these retros are definitely starting to ramp up in quality now as these games have gone on. But now's the time to answer what is the best track in all of the League Cups. Well, I think it's obvious what it is. Maple Treeway clears house to no one's surprise. And you know what? That's actually kind of fitting that I picked this, as we are approaching the autumn season now. But there are definitely some runners up in there, like Daisy Cruiser and Yoshi Valley to name a few. But now we are near the end of covering the original 8 cups. As next time, we have the Lightning Cups to offer, which should be rather interesting, as we may have a little bit more than just 16 retros to cover here. But if you guys want to stay tuned to find out why, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date and to not miss out on the newest content. Until next time, bye guys.